Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and I wanted to talk a little bit about my loadout that I've been using in Elite Dangerous on my Viper. I've kind of searched around to see what people prefer and doing my own research, what weapons work best. I even went up to a Cobra to try something that's got a better power plant and kind of came back and ended up saying, alright, what the hell, I need to go back to my Viper, I just prefer it anyways, and I'm not really doing much trading or anything, so the combat seemed best for me. Anyways, through my research and through just playing around with the different setups and classes and everything, I wanted to talk about some things that I think are going to be best for the Viper, at least for me. So, I prefer kind of a more standard loadout in types of weaponry. You know, I like to have 2 lasers and 2 kinetic weapons on my ship. You know, mainly just because the lasers are so good at taking out the shields, and the kinetic really kind of thrive against the hull of the ship. That being said, though, you could probably get by with an all-laser setup, but haven't found a whole lot of success in going all-kinetic. So, I guess let's start by chatting about the weapons a little bit and my opinions on them so far, because there's a lot of different choices in how you can set up your ship. You know, I guess I should probably give the quick disclaimer that these are just my preferences and opinions. I've done research and kind of shared some others as well, but you may find success in a setup where I haven't. You know, also keep in mind that this loadout that I'm going to talk about is really kind of specific to the Viper, and it would probably be different on some of the other ships. So when it comes to lasers, you really got 3 options. You've got pulse, burst, and beam. Now, pulse are kind of your standard lasers, you know, the pew-pew lasers. They come with your the first Sidewinder that you get. You know, they're going to be able to be fired for a long time. They're not going to have much of an impact on your power draw or your heat for that matter. You know, their damage is pretty good overall, but they kind of have a medium rate of fire. Now, a step up from that would be burst lasers. You know, they act very similarly to the pulse, but they can just fire at a faster rate. You know, I almost equate them to like the multi-cannons of the laser world, if you will. Now, these seem to be kind of a nice hybrid between the beam and the pulse. You know, they don't do a ton of damage with each individual shot, but they, you know, you can send a lot of lasers downrange, meaning you've got a better shot at actually hitting something. Now, the last option is going to be your beam lasers, and for me, these are by far my favorite option. The beam lasers fire a constant line of laser, and it's got 2 major advantages because of that. One, once you get your laser on target, it basically draws a line from point A to point B, with A being your ship and B being their ship, so it's really easy to keep that laser on the target. And because you're able to do that, you can really melt enemy shields crazy fast. And then I even find the damage that you can do to holes on ships pretty damn good with the lasers. Or with the beams. Now, they do come with a couple downsides. They're not perfect, primarily being that they're very power hungry, which can kind of be an issue on the Viper, considering it's got it just uses a ton of juice, and they do incur quite a bit of heat, so you'll notice that your ship will start to actually overheat. Now, it's nothing you can't manage, but it's something you don't really see on the other lasers that much. Now, you can counteract some of the power issues by kind of going with a fixed set of beams instead of gimbals, just because the gimbals use more power. And the other weaponry you bring on board your ship is going to be important too. So for your lasers, I recommend fixed beams, 2 of them. Now I'm going to go ahead and skip over frag cannons when we start talking about kinetic, because they've been terrible so far. They require you to be very close range, they're just kind of limited in their use, and the shotgun effect means that you may very well not land all of your pellets. Now your mileage may vary a little bit, but my advice would be to not waste your time with those. Now, the gold standard of the lighter weight weaponry is going to be with your multi-cannons. You know, they're versatile, they're easy to land shots with, they're very forgiving because of that, and they do quite a bit of damage to hulls. Now, they come with a couple benefits of like having big ammunition pool, so you're not having to go stock up very often, and they have low power requirements, even when you have them gimbaled. You know, it's really almost comical how fast the beams in conjunction with multi-cannons can take down an eagle, but the results on some of the larger ships like Pythons and up are a bit different. Now, they're still effective, but you really need larger weapons to feel like you're making a huge impact. Now, while the same class of weapons, I would say that there's 2 options that are kind of larger, quote-unquote. The Railgun fires a hypervelocity round that packs a heck of a wallop. They're fun to use, but they've got some really major downsides to them. One of them being that they use a ton of power. I mean, a stupid amount of power, and that is a huge issue on the Viper. So if you want to use the, if you want to use the railgun, you almost got to choose not to use the beams. Maybe like a pulse laser setup would be better in that case. But either way, that power draw is almost a deal breaker for me alone when using the Viper. The second is that they have a very limited ammo pool, so you have to restock a lot. The third is that the ammo is crazy expensive. And finally, if you don't hit your subsystems reliably, The damage output is just kind of meh. Now, when you do hit the subsystems, though, boom. I mean, they're very good. I mean, they do a lot of damage. It's effective. You can knock out power plants and stuff. All around pretty good. Now, on the flip side, though, you've got cannons. And cannons can be gimbaled. They can be fixed. But they fire larger projectiles, almost like artillery. Now, outside of multi-cannons, the big cannons are going to be your more versatile option. You know, they're effective against small targets. They're effective against large targets, etc. The biggest problem with cannons, though, is the ammo is fairly expensive, and they have a slow travel time. Now, the ammo is about half the price of a railgun, so if you're choosing option A or option B, it's going to be cheaper to run your cannon. Now, when I say half the price, I'm talking about running through all your ammo. The cannon carries about 2 to 3 times the ammo that the railgun does. Now, because of the slow travel time that I mentioned, I definitely suggest going gimbaled on the cannons. You know, just don't be, surprised if you end up missing a shot here or there. They're not perfect. If somebody makes an adjustment and you're kind of far away, you're not going to land those shots. But if you're at fairly close ranges, I mean, it's going to be pretty reliable. And if you want to fight larger ships like an Asp or, a Python, if you target like a subsystem like their power plant, you're going to be effective in taking them down because they do a lot of damage when they actually land. So the cannons have kind of been my, most effective setup so far for targeting larger ships. So when it comes to your kinetic weapons, my advice is to either choose multi-cannons or just plain cannons. And if you're primarily fighting smaller ships, then go with the multis. But if you prefer larger targets, maybe then you go with the cannons. Or hell, you don't lose anything when you sell your weapons back. So try them both and see what you like. But I think one of those is going to be kind of your sweet spot. And the last thing I wanted to suggest is something I don't see many people doing, and that's staggering your weapons. You know, the Viper's hardpoints are kind of weird, and convergence can be a little bit difficult as well, especially when we're talking about beam lasers. So, for example, on my ship, I have a small beam laser on the top right of my ship, and a large beam laser on the bottom right of my ship. Both of those are actually fixed. So not only does that give me more laser power because I'm running a big one along with the small one to get those shields down, but the convergence is awesome. I mean, you can pretty much get both of the lasers on point, no problem. Then on the left side of my ship, I have a small gimbaled cannon on top and a larger gimbaled cannon on bottom. Now, since both of those are gimbaled, convergence isn't a huge issue, but it does give you the extra power of the Class 2, plus the benefit of the benefit of having the ability to shoot targets that are above you or below you easier. So while both of those may not be able to get on target at the same time, at least one of them probably can. So, try them out a little bit, see what you like. But I think if you kind of give it a shot with, your lasers on one side and your kinetic on the other, you're going to really like the results, at least so far on the Viper. Now, it's kind of the same thing. You know, if you want to use multi-cannon to do the small on top, big on bottom, that's going to just kind of be what has worked for me and something I suggest that you try out. So if you guys have different loadouts you're using or that you really like, let me know. I'm curious. I'm kind of testing all this out and want to try new things. But for me, this is the one that worked best, and I wanted to share it with you guys because I've found a lot of fun and success going this route. So any questions, let me know. Otherwise, stay tuned for more. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and take care.